Well, we all know that exercising is generally good for our physical and mental health, but a new study has been able to make a direct correlation between a person's fitness and depression and anxiety. Let's take this to our health expert, Dr. Joe Kostorich. Joe, good afternoon to you.
Good afternoon, Tomo.
Now, this was a very comprehensive study over 7 years. Just talk us through, what did it discover?
So they followed 150,000, but more than 150,000 people over a 7-year period. And at the beginning, they did measurements of fitness 2 ways, looking at cardiovascular fitness. They did their pulse rate before and after some 6 minutes of exercise, and also measured grip strength as an indicator. And it is an indicator of, I suppose, resistance strength and muscle mass. And then they also got them to do depression and anxiety scores. At the end of 7 years, which is a fairly long time, they again did a follow-up, and not every one of the 152,000 people probably did the follow-up, but enough to make it a valid study, and basically found that those people who were at good fitness, and that included both cardiovascular fitness and strength, and no, they didn't have to be Arnold Schwarzenegger, there's reasonable strength for age and gender, were 98% less likely to have depression and 60% less likely to have anxiety. Now, these are very major figures. It doesn't mean that it doesn't mean that if you're fit you cannot get depressed or anxious, or that if you're not fit you will get it, but it's a very, very strong correlation, and it builds on previous work that has demonstrated this before.
I know I've heard you talk about it before as well. So, Joe, is a simple walk enough, and what's the best way to personalise a fitness routine?
Look, walking is good cardiovascular exercise, and in answer to your question, it's really good to do that. In an ideal world, it's really good to combine some cardiovascular fitness, whether it's walking, running, bike riding, swimming, really whatever you enjoy doing, with something which involves resistance. Now, that can be as simple as some press-ups or chin-ups or squats. Once more, a lot of the councils these days have around their parks some stations where you can do some exercises in amongst your walk or your jog. Look, you can go to a gym, you can get equipment at home, and it doesn't have to be expensive or complicated. So ideally, a mix of both. The best exercise, Tom, and I'm sure you found this from experience as well, the best exercise is something that you A, enjoy, and B, that you therefore will stick to.
Exactly. Something you feel comfortable with and something you know isn't doing your body any damage, which leads to the next question. Can you do too much?
Oh, look, absolutely one can overdo it. And look, probably most people are not going to do that. But we know with elite athletes that they can overtrain, and that can also lead to injury. And it's very important for people, if they haven't maybe been doing much exercise for a while, that the technique is correct. It's not like, well, I'm going to get into the gym and I'm going to try and lift 100 kilos. No, that's probably not going to end terribly well. You're going to injure yourself and then you won't go back. So starting with light weights and making sure that the technique is right. If you're doing exercises, for example, squats is a classic one. Make sure you're using your legs and not your back. So don't injure yourself, and necessarily don't overdo it. You don't have to train 7 days a week. 3 or 4 days a week is absolutely sufficient.
OK, understand. Now, this particular study didn't look at diet, but this also has a big impact on people's mental health.
Yeah, look, we know, and some of these issues I might cut a little bit both ways, and the question can be asked, well, are people who exercise, therefore they've got better mental health? Could it be that people with poor mental health are less likely to exercise? A little bit chicken and egg, but there certainly is a correlation in this point of exercise. We also know that, and this was work done in Australia, that and elsewhere, that eating a lot of processed sugary foods is not good for our mental health. So unfortunately, if we are feeling a little bit down and we tend to go to munchies with biscuits or chocolates, it's probably not a good thing. So sensible diet with, and again, this is 101 stuff, some fruits, vegetables, some good quality proteins, drinking plenty of water. Having a sensible diet doesn't mean you can't have a piece of cake on Sunday, doesn't mean you can't have an ice cream now and again. Sensible diet, not having too much of the processed sugary foods, eating some fruits and vegetables, drinking water is also good for our mental health.
Yeah, no, I think you've hit the nail on the head. And, Joe, we know that heart health, diabetes, all sorts of things. In a nutshell, if you can get outside and do some exercise, it just makes a massive difference, doesn't it?
Absolutely, and we're very fortunate in this city that we have pretty good weather, pretty much all year round. Yeah, you can get rained on, but, you can pick your times, and these days you can look on your app to see where the rain is coming. It's not always accurate, is my experience, but and this time of year is perfect. It's not that hot, it's not too cold, it's still light till, close to 7 o'clock at night time. You can get home, get your kids involved if you have children, throw a frisbee, take the dog. Make it a fun. Make it a fun thing. But just get into it regularly. And this is the best time of year, to be outside exercising. And I should point out that fresh air is good for us as well.
Absolutely. As always, Dr. Joe Kostorich, thank you.
You're welcome, Tomo.